yesterday. The Beatles here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report, the song that the Congressmember Luis Gutierrez sang as he moved from Chicago to Puerto Rico. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Our guest for the hour is the first Latino elected from the Midwest to the U.S. Congress. Yes, he is Chicago Congressmember Luis Gutierrez, and he's out this month with his memoir, Still Dreaming, My Journey from the Barrio to Capitol Hill. Juan?
Luis, I wanted to touch on something you said just as we went to break about your role as a Puerto Rican, and ask you, how is it there's only 4, I think, Puerto Ricans in the House of Representatives, voting members, and there are many more Mexican Americans, and how is it that a Puerto Rican, a U.S. citizen, born as a U.S. citizen, becomes the leading voice for immigration reform in the House of Representatives? I mean, obviously, there are many Mexican Americans that are in Chicago, but you've become really the point person on this issue in the Congress.
Well, Juan, look, when I got to Congress back in 1992, and people started saying what were they going to prioritize, and people said they were going to prioritize education, they were going to prioritize the environment, they were going to prioritize different issues in the Congress of the United States, banking and housing issues. There wasn't a lot of competition for immigration, obviously. So I took it up in the beginning because when I kept going back home to Chicago, people kept asking me, how do I become a citizen? I had hundreds of thousands of newly minted green card holders, because in 1986, let's remember, I arrive at a moment in the Congress. In 1986, we passed what is really an amnesty, and 3 million people get their green cards. Well, right around 91, 92, they become eligible to take those green cards and convert them to citizenship. And so I'm in a position to do that. But moreover, look at my life experience. I go to Puerto Rico, and what do? I pay sugarcane cutters. I go to Puerto Rico, and I live in a part of the island that is intensely agricultural. I pick coffee beans. I know what it's like to work that hard work in the agriculture, in an agricultural setting. But at the same time, I remember my mom and my dad and how hard they worked. So I come from an experience in which I know how Puerto Ricans were treated when they arrived in New York City and arrived in this country. And so I think it is very natural, given. Look, as I wrote the memoir, it became clearer and clearer to me that the experiences I had politically, individually, in terms of my family and my Puerto Rican roots in coming. Juan, you and I have heard this expression time and time again. It's part of being Puerto Rican in the United States, right? How many times when a conflict arises, isn't a Puerto Rican simply told, why don't you go back where you came from? Why don't you go back where you came from? And indeed, in the memoir, I relate a moment when I took my daughter. We had gone to the Vietnam Memorial, right? We had praised our Korean War veterans from the 65th Infantry for their courageous actions. We had spoken about all the contributions of Puerto Ricans to this country, the United States of America. And yet when I returned to the Capitol that day, we were scorned by a security aide who simply told us, go back where you came from. So it doesn't matter sometimes, even rising to the position of member of the Congress of the United States, sometimes you're still looked at as a foreigner. And so I just want to say to new people to this country, look, people gave up a lot so that I could have a voice and a role in the Congress of the United States. And maybe there was nobody there to stand up for my mom and dad when they reached the Barrio in New York City back in 1952. But there's somebody today as people arrive. And curious, I was just in New York this weekend, Juan. I got to tell you, there were like more Mexican restaurants and taquerias and places in carniceria that were Mexican in El Barrio over on 110th and Lexington than Puerto Rican places. It's almost as though there is a reason. The Barrio today is an immigrant community, not of Puerto Ricans, but of Mexican immigrants and from other parts of Latin America.
Congressmember Gutierrez, you don't care about making friends when you are making a very important point. When you first came to Congress, when others are making nice, it was sort of like now, right? You had the wage freeze, and so federal workers had their wages frozen, and you felt Congress members should abide by the same rules because they were exempted. Can you talk about what you did then?
Sure. Look, it's I had been campaigning. I remember it was wonderful with Bill Clinton in 1992. He gets elected president. He comes in, he gives his first State of the Union address, right? And he talks about that we have a deficit and that we need to bring it under control. And one of the first things he says is that we're going to freeze the wages of all federal employees. And I remember as the members of the House of Representatives and the Senate stood up in applause, right? And I said, okay. The next morning, I asked my staff a simple question. So we're all getting our salaries frozen? And they said, yeah, everybody but you, because you'll be exempt, because you're special. You're a member of Congress. So I called up some colleagues, and 8 of us introduced a piece of legislation freezing the salaries of members of Congress. You cannot applaud on the House floor what you believe others should sacrifice if you're not ready to endure the same sacrifices. And endure is probably a hard work when you're earning $130,000 back then. So, look, I just tried to do what I believed was right and what I believed was consistent with a level playing field. I've done that in the Congress of the United States. Look, you ask me, do I do those things today? Rarely. Because today I'm making friends and building relationships to bring about comprehensive immigration reform. And I'm building those relationships. Most people don't remember the Luis Gutierrez of the pay freeze and stopping our special parking at National Airport or controlling how it is we got to send out free flyers and information to our constituents even days before an election. People don't think about Luis in those contexts today, but I write about them in my memoir so that people can see the kind of arc of my time in the Congress of the United States.
Luis, I'd like to ask you about your relationship with another larger-than-life figure, the mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel. You have not always had a good relationship with him, to say the least. You backed one of his opponents when he ran for mayor. Talk about your relationship with Rahm Emanuel and what kind of job you think he's doing as mayor of Chicago.
Yeah, you know, tough job. Mayor of the city of Chicago. I was a city council member there. Loved doing that job. So Rahm Emanuel decides he's going to run for mayor of the city of Chicago. I don't support him. I support Gary Chico. One of the major issues that is used and brought up during the campaign, even for mayor of the city of Chicago, is what's your record on immigration? Rahm didn't have very much of a record. He had been chief of staff to Barack Obama. Barack Obama hadn't done much his first 2 years as president of the United States, and the deportations were an issue. He wins. He calls me up and he says, Luis, I want to make this the most immigrant-friendly city in America. Well, I can't argue with that. That's consistent with my goals and my priorities. And indeed, he's done many things. He's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for the Dreamers, so after they get their work permits, they can go on and study in college. He's made sure that the city of Chicago does not cooperate with federal authorities so that somebody has a traffic violation, they don't wind up getting deported from the city of Chicago. He's engaged. He and I have had citizenship workshops. So our relationship has evolved. He said to me, I want to take an eraser and erase the chalkboard and start fresh with you. I love working with him on issues of immigration. And I have to tell you, one of the good things about having someone as astute and as smart and with the background is that I get to rely on him today about how best I use my energy and how best I use my time in Congress, and we get to talk about how I strategize and what tactics I use to get comprehensive immigration reform. So he is wonderful to be able to call to get this done. He wants to get it done. He wants the city of Chicago to be free of deportations too.
You do, though, today, Congressmember Luis Gutierrez, get arrested, and you've been arrested more than once protesting. Why do you choose that form of civil disobedience?
Well, first of all, it encourages others to become involved. And it stops people from seeing you and distinguishing you as anything other than part of a broader movement. This last time, I mean, sometimes you do it because no one else will. Sometimes you just do it because no one else will. That's not what happened a few weeks ago. I was honored to be with John Lewis and Raul Grijalva and so many others of my colleagues. There were 8 of us. And you could see the Capitol behind us, the place that we go to work. And there were hundreds of others that were arrested with us. Look, I think it's important because you bring energy to the community. Everywhere I go, people tell me, thank you. So there is a connection with a broader movement. Plus, it's unfair and it's unjust. The deportations aren't right. They destroy families. And sometimes it is appropriate and correct to deprive yourself of your own freedom and liberty to raise an issue so that others can be free and have liberty. Today, it's not like the civil rights movement of the 60s, right? It isn't like women who had to stand outside the White House in 1917 and 1918 with Woodrow Wilson. Look, but there's still, and plus, there's a call back, right, to civil rights in the civil rights movement when the black community protested. There is that connection, and so we want to make that connection. This is the civil rights movement of today. We've got to get it done. We've got 11 million people who live in the shadows. They're exploited. So when I sit down and talk to people, I clear the table. So I can see Paul Ryan not as budget chairman, not as somebody whose budget I have voted and will always vote against, but as a friend and an ally to free 11 million people. So I create new friendships and new relationships in regards to comprehensive immigration reform, because let's face it, Democrats didn't do it in 2007, 2008, we were in the majority. Democrats didn't do it in 2009 and 2010, we were in the majority. Now we've got to do it. We have a majority in the Senate, they've done their job. And I have to figure out a way to take our minority of 201 Democrats and get to 218 votes. There's only one way you can do that, and that's working with Republicans. We must put the lives,
5 seconds,
the lives of the immigrant community ahead of our partisan politics.
Congressmember Luis Gutierrez, I want to thank you for being with us, Democratic Congressman from Illinois.
Thank
His
you, Amy.
memoir just out this month, Still Dreaming, My Journey from the Barrio to Capitol Hill. Happy birthday.